Good afternoon and welcome to Midday Prime. I'm Amritpal Singh. Over the next 1 hour, we bring you all the stories and updates from India and around the world. We'll update you about the happenings in the world of business and sports, and we'll get you some interesting stories that are making the headlines. But first up, the big news we're tracking at this hour. West Bengal governor submits the report to Home Ministry over attack on the convoy of BJP President JP Nadda in West Bengal. Governor Jagdeep Dhankar says the extremely disturbing developments do not augur well for democratic values. The Union Home Ministry summons the state's Chief Secretary and the DGP over law and order situation in the state. Prime Minister Modi holds summit-level dialogue with Uzbekistan President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. Prime Minister Modi calls terrorism, radicalism and fundamentalism the biggest challenges facing the region today. Reiterates India's commitment to strengthen partnership with Uzbekistan. Adds that during difficult COVID-19 times, both nations have helped each other. On the eve of 5 years of Paris Agreement, Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar says India has only 3% contribution towards global emission and is in no way responsible for climate change. Adds that India is one of the few countries which are Paris Climate Agreement compatible. Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar says the government is ready to hold discussions with farmers again on the new farm laws to find a solution. Assures farmers that the government is not doing away with MSP under the new laws. Prime Minister Modi address International Bharatiya Festival this evening. Festival to see participation of several national and international poets and artists through virtual mode. India's fight against COVID continues. Less than 40,000 daily cases for the 11th consecutive day. New record set in COVID testing with 1 crore tests in 10 days. Health Minister says 8 vaccine candidates, including 3 indigenous ones, will be manufactured in India. The United States FDA advisors overwhelmingly back authorizing Pfizer vaccine for emergency use amidst deteriorating COVID situation in the US. COVID-19 deaths smash daily record in the US, spurring pleas to trim back Christmas celebrations. And today is the International Mountain Day. On the occasion, Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar says India is home to the Great Himalayas and other mountain ranges with unique biodiversity. So those were the headlines we were tracking at this hour, and let's begin with the big news of the day. West Bengal Governor Jagdeep Dhankar today submitted a report to the central government on the deteriorating law and order situation in Bengal, after which the state's police chief and chief secretary have been summoned on Monday. Dhankar, condemning Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee's comments on an attack on the BJP chief JP Nadda's convoy, asked her to withdraw them and warned to her today. Stones were hurled at BJP President JP Nadda's convoy en route Diamond Harbour in West Bengal.
भारत की नागरिकता एक है। ये जो खतरनाक खेल है, कौन बाहरी कौन अंदरूनी, आप इसको त्याग दीजिए। आपने शपथ ली है उस संविधान के तहत काम करने की जिसका प्रीएम्बल मैंने पढ़ा है। यदि अगर आप इस रास्ते से भटकती हैं तो मेरे दायित्व की शुरुआत होती है। मैं आपसे विनम्र प्रार्थना करता हूं, गुजारिश करता हूं, भारत के महान प्रजातांत्रिक व्यवस्था पर संविधान की भावना के विपरीत कार्य कर इस प्रकार का कदम मत उठाएं।
The governor also warned the erring officials of the state for favouring TMC in the state and not carrying out their constitutional duty.
A message to some bureaucrats who are integrated as stakeholders in the political field. They are frontline workers. They are using everything under the sun to act not as public servants, but as political workers. This will not be allowed anymore. I have details of 21 such people. I do not wish to reveal the details. I don't want to be judgmental. I have written to the Honorable Chief Minister.
And Union Minister and senior BJP leader Prakash Javadekar condemned the attack on BJP President JP Nadda in West Bengal. He slammed the state government for poor administration.
कल भारतीय जनता पार्टी के राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष जेपी नड्डा जी के काफिले पर जिस तरह से हमला हुआ है वो बहुत निंदनीय है। गृह मंत्रालय ने रिपोर्ट मंगवाया है। वेस्ट बंगाल सरकार ही माहौल ऐसा बना रही है और वेस्ट बंगाल सरकार ही ऐसे सारी हिंसा उनके नेता करा रहे हैं। ऐसा लोकतंत्र नहीं है ये। दिस इज नॉट डेमोक्रेसी। और मैं पूछना चाहता हूं वो जो सारी राहुल गांधी और बाकी ऑपोजिशन पार्टी है वो अब क्यों चुप है? इतनी लोकतंत्र के हत्या अगर कहां हो रही है तो बंगाल में हो रही है।
And BJP workers protested at various places in West Bengal against the attack on the convoy of BJP President JP Nadda in Barrackpur and Durgapur in North 24 Parganas of West Bengal. People staged protests and took out a rally. And for more on that story, I'm joined by my colleague Rajiv Bhattacharya, who joins us from Kolkata. Rajiv, once again we see this issue heating up. Now the war of words between the governor and the chief minister have once again started. The governor making very serious comments on the state of affairs in West Bengal.
Right, Amritpal. This afternoon, the governor of West Bengal, Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar, held a press conference where he expressed his deep anguish over yesterday's incidents, and at the same time the comments made by the chief minister which followed those incidents, and therefore he said that he hoped that the chief minister would take back those comments, and that he had submitted a report to the centre, the Union Home Ministry, regarding yesterday's incidents. The governor also said that he had summoned even before this, he had summoned the DG of Police and the Chief Secretary of the State to meet him, and therefore it is perhaps a very telling comment on the situation prevailing in West Bengal right now, and therefore it doesn't really augur very well for the coming months ahead, especially when you consider that within the space of 5.5 months the state is going for its assembly elections. Unfortunately, these kind of incidents have their fallout, the repercussions also take place, and the ripples continue afterwards also, and therefore it is all in all not a very happy situation for the state and for the country as well. Amritpal.
Rajiv, what is the situation of protests? We understand that BJP workers are protesting in certain parts of the state on the attack on the BJP president.
That's right. As soon as the news of the attack spread yesterday, first of all, the reaction was one of amazement. People were too stunned to say anything, but by the evening BJP workers came out into the streets right across the state, not only here in Kolkata but in the districts of South Bengal, districts of North Bengal. The BJP supporters came out onto the streets and protested, blocked roads, and even today some protests were held in the morning, and from what we have been hearing, some more protests are planned this afternoon and this evening as well. Like I was saying, that incidents happen and the ripples and the repercussions continue. So today we are going to see another round of protests and maybe a couple of roadblocks as well regarding the incidents, the shameful incidents that happened yesterday at Diamond Harbour. Amritpal.
So what are the arrangements that the police, the administration has put in place, because this war of words is heating up? We saw, as you say, and we heard the governor come out at the Raj Bhavan and virtually accuse the state government of not fulfilling its constitutional commitments. He also accused some state officials, where he went on to say they are acting as political agents and not really fulfilling their constitutional obligations which they are sworn to. Now when workers come out on the streets, we can see a reaction from TMC workers. So what has the administration put in place to see that the situation, at least on the streets, doesn't spiral out of control?
Well, obviously one can safely say that the incident that happened, the police should have been having advance information that such an incident could take place, and therefore the police did not act on time or properly, or did not have adequate forces or whatever, but and the incident happened. And now later the police said that they managed to control the situation and everything, and no one was hurt. That is to say, none of the political leadership were hurt. Now that raises two questions as to what is going to happen next, because this situation right now, when you're leading up to elections, assembly elections, you're going to have visits from lots of people, lots of VIPs from different parts of the country are going to come, address meetings, campaign, hold rallies, crisscrossing the state. Therefore, the administration has a very important duty, a very important role to see that everything is all right, that the VIPs are protected, the people who come to the meetings and the rallies of all parties, regardless of their political affiliation, are protected and can safely go back home, and that no public property is damaged. You see, as a spontaneous outburst of anger or anguish or despair, sometimes government property is damaged and vandalized, which is not really helping anyone in the long run.
True.
Therefore, the administration has a very special role to play to see and to ensure that these kind of incidents don't happen in the future, because that will be a very bad signal for the state. Amritpal.
Rajiv, I'll request you to stay on with us. We also have Shekhar Iyer joining us, senior journalist Shekhar Iyer joining us on the show. Shekhar, with impending elections, Bengal political violence is nothing new to Bengal. We've seen it in the past between the left, between the TMC. Now as the BJP increases or tries to increase its electoral base there, do you say this was expected? Though it's very unfortunate that now it has come to where union ministers have to come in, the governor has to come in and criticize the chief minister. Though, I mean, we've seen such sort of political wrangling in the past as well, but it doesn't really augur well.
Well, Amritpal, we have seen for the last 1 year or so, there has been a systematic attack on opposition leaders and opposition party workers, and also to some kind of intimidate the people who are responding to the opposition campaign. So, and we yesterday heard Mr. Nadda himself saying after this incident that more than 130 BJP workers have been killed and many more have been injured by this violence which has been going on. And this cycle of violence we saw during the Panchayat elections also, we saw it during the Lok Sabha elections also. And the unfortunate part is, being the party in power, there is a lot of responsibility that devolves on the Chief Minister, particularly Mamata Banerjee, to actually take cognizance of these kinds of incidents. See, but unfortunately, I don't know why she has not responded in a way she should have, considering the office she holds. Instead, we have seen that her whole idea is to poo-poo the whole thing and dismiss it off as some kind of a violence caused by people coming from outside. That is why today you have seen the way the governor has reacted. He is duty bound to react to this kind of situation. He has already sent a report to the Union Home Ministry, and the Union Home Ministry has asked the Chief Secretary and the Director General of Police to come to the ministry on Monday. So you can see that how seriously this incident has been viewed. But because as the BJP President, Mr. Nadda ji, was saying, that if this can happen to the president of a political party, you can imagine the fate of the common people and the other political workers. And I can recall during the last Panchayat elections, we had an unusual scene of candidates belonging to the Congress, left and BJP, rather going together to file nomination, because the candidates who were going to file nominations were attacked. And in the Lok Sabha election, same thing happened. Somewhere along, I have seen a pattern in Bengal. Whenever the ruling party is in the decline, whether it was Congress in the 70s, and this kind of political violence has happened. Then again, when communists were in power, when the Marxists were in power, Trinamool Congress itself was a victim of this kind of violence. Now we are seeing it again. I think it's a very serious matter, and this should not be allowed to go out of hands.
Shikhar, let me understand from you, as you yourself say, this has happened to the Congress, the TMC itself has been on the receiving end of political violence when they were trying to, increase their electoral base or challenge the then left who was in power for a very, very long time. Why is it, you as a journalist, and Rajiv, this question to you is also, that why is political violence so steeped into the culture of Bengal?
Well, Amarpal, I think, there is some kind of, because I have tried to find this out from many political leaders of Bengal as well as some of my journalistic friends. Their response is, this has become some kind of an accepted political culture, very unfortunately. They are also very concerned because they see that since it happened before and people take it as it only involves the political workers of the different sides, and it doesn't affect so much the common person. But my own information is, see, when at a time when the whole state is geared up for the assembly elections, political parties are going to different villages, to different interior areas. So the rivals, the rival groups which fear that their complete domination is threatened are resorting to this violence, because somewhere along, I think, there is a sense of an anti-incumbency factor working on the minds of these political leaders and their workers. And Amritpal ji, you have to remember that yesterday's violence took place in the constituency of Diamond Harbour. This constituency is held by Mr. Abhishek Banerjee, who is the nephew of Mamata Banerjee and who is considered the most powerful leader in Trinamool. So therefore, somewhere along there is some kind of if not a sanction, but some kind of looking askance at this kind of developments, which is really unfortunate, and this threatens conduct of free and fair elections.
Okay, Rajiv, let me bring you in. Shekhar says, Rajiv, can you hear me? Rajiv Bhattacharya, can you hear me? I think we've lost contact with Rajiv. All right, Shekhar, now, where does this go from here? Today, I mean, we've seen the governor step in. Where does it go from here? What do you, as elections are impending, what do you expect?
Well, I think the center cannot keep quiet, because it is not that because the BJP president is involved, who has been attacked, it is not because of the party consideration. Now, the center is duty bound, so is the governor, in ensuring that there is a fair play and there is no threat to the life and security of the people, and that people include political workers and political leaders. So definitely some kind of a warning is expected to be given by the center, and we have seen how the governor has spoken today, and the governor has already said that this is playing with fire. And the response that Chief Minister yesterday tried to laugh it off, treat it as, and in the manner in which she reacted, that has
yes, that was very unbecoming.
And the kind of language she has used, and to reduce all this to some outsider and insider. Now, this is not the language of a Chief Minister, particularly at a time like this, because this is bound to instigate, particularly those who are belonging to the ruling party, to indulge in these acts, because they feel that there is sanction and this is something approved.
Absolutely. Well, we hope that better sense prevails and the Chief Minister does, take its role as a constitutional authority rather than making it political. Shekhar Iyer, many thanks for joining us for the moment and lending us your insight. Well, moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi today held the first virtual summit level dialogue with the President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev. In his opening remarks, Prime Minister highlighted the issue of terrorism. Prime Minister said that both nations stand against terrorism. Prime Minister further stressed on the achievements reached in 2 decades through peace agreements in Afghanistan.
उग्रवाद, कट्टरवाद तथा अलगाववाद के बारे में हमारी एक जैसी चिंताएं हैं। हम दोनों ही आतंकवाद के खिलाफ दृढ़ता से एक साथ खड़े हैं। क्षेत्रीय सुरक्षा के मुद्दों पर भी हमारा एक जैसा नजरिया है। हम सहमत हैं कि अफगानिस्तान में शांति की बहाली के लिए एक ऐसी प्रक्रिया आवश्यक है जो स्वयं अफगानिस्तान की अगुवाई, स्वामित्व और नियंत्रण में हो। पिछले 2 दशकों की उपलब्धियों को सुरक्षित रखना भी आवश्यक है।
The Prime Minister also focused on the joint cooperation of both countries in COVID times.
महामारी के इस कठिन समय में दोनों देशों ने एक दूसरे को भरपूर सहयोग दिया है, चाहे दवाइयों की आपूर्ति के लिए हो या एक दूसरे के नागरिकों को सुरक्षित घर लौटाने के लिए। हमारे प्रदेशों के बीच भी सहयोग बढ़ रहा है। गुजरात और अंदीजों की सफल भागीदारी के मॉडल पर अब हरियाणा और फरगाना के बीच सहयोग की रूपरेखा बन रही है।
Prime Minister Modi further highlighted the bilateral relations which encompass a wider canvas through joint working group to reach new skills in infrastructure, IT and the training sectors.
भारत और उज्बेकिस्तान ने मिलकर इंडिया सेंट्रल एशिया डायलॉग की पहल ली थी। इसकी शुरुआत पिछले वर्ष समरकंद से हुई थी। एक्सेलेंसी, पिछले कुछ वर्षों में हमारी आर्थिक साझेदारी भी मजबूत हुई है। हम उज्बेकिस्तान के साथ अपनी डेवलपमेंट पार्टनरशिप को भी और घनिष्ठ बनाना चाहते हैं। मुझे यह जानकर खुशी है कि भारतीय लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट के अंतर्गत कई प्रोजेक्ट्स पर विचार किया जा रहा है। आपकी विकास प्राथमिकताओं के अनुसार हम भारत की एक्सपर्टाइज और एक्सपीरियंस साझा करने के लिए तैयार हैं। इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, आईटी, शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य, ट्रेनिंग और कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग जैसे क्षेत्रों में भारत में काफी काबिलियत है जो उज्बेकिस्तान के काम आ सकती है। हमारे बीच कृषि संबंध जॉइंट वर्किंग ग्रुप की स्थापना एक महत्वपूर्ण और सकारात्मक कदम है। इससे हम अपने कृषि व्यापार को बढ़ाने के अवसर खोज सकते हैं, जिससे दोनों देशों के किसानों को मदद मिलेगी।
And Uzbekistan President Shavkat Mirziyoyev said that both countries stand firmly against terrorism. He added that modern India is emerging as a leading power.
So we have been closely cooperating in the area of the fighting the common threats and challenges and standing up for the soonest peaceful settlement in Afghanistan. Modern India is one of the leading world powers with enormous economic and intellectual potential, and I do highly appreciate the achieved level of the open and constructive dialogue as well as comprehensive support on the part of Indian government.
And my colleague Abhishek Jha joins us for more on that story. Abhishek, this virtual meeting, which was the first virtual meeting between Prime Minister Modi and any Central Asian leader, Explain to us the significance of this meeting.
Amit, we know that India considers Central Asia as its extended neighborhood, and this dialogue between the Prime Minister and the Uzbeki leader is an effort towards that direction to consolidate Central Asia as part of a place where India's strategic and commercial interests are closely tied up. And with this dialogue that we have seen today, and the kind of MOUs that has been listed by the Ministry of External Affairs, which have been signed or agreed upon today, almost 9 MOUs have been signed, and most of them are regarding capacity building between India and Uzbekistan. And like the Prime Minister had said, that Uzbekistan can benefit from the areas of expertise that India already has in terms of renewable energy, in terms of capacity building in education, health, pharmaceutical, agriculture, and other aspects. And both the nations can exchange also the good practices and in various areas. So today's meeting between the two leaders were mostly focused around these areas and how India and Uzbekistan can not only take forward their relationship, but can also enhance the cooperation in terms of trade dynamics and strategic dynamics.
Abhishek, Abhishek, I was saying, though the Prime Minister in his opening remarks didn't dwell too much on it, he touched upon it, cooperation in COVID times. But, with the development of the vaccine, with India's strength in the pharma sector, could we see greater cooperation with Afghanistan in that, which basically could mean mass production and giving the vaccine to Uzbekistan?
Of course, Amit, in fact, not only Uzbekistan, but the whole world is pinning its hope on India, because about the 65% production capabilities of the current vaccine demand that globally is needed, India holds that capacity. And in case any vaccine production or any vaccine breakthrough happens anywhere in any corner of the world, India is going to be the main supplier and distributor of the vaccine. So be it Russia, UK, USA, China, anywhere, if the vaccine comes and it happens for the larger human good, India is going to be one of the main supplier and producer of the vaccine. And be it Uzbekistan, Central Asian, or the neighborhood countries, everywhere India has promised that it's going to present its all capacity and extend its help and aid to all its friendly countries. And Uzbekistan will also be one of its part. Earlier also, during this COVID pandemic time, when India had supplied globally its medical aid, medical equipment, drugs, medicines, and related accessories, COVID-related accessories, Uzbekistan was also one of the beneficiary of this whole mission. And going forward, we can only hope that the vaccine breakthrough happens quickly, so that the Indian capabilities can also be utilized and the world can get better off getting rid of this COVID vaccine.
Okay. The Prime Minister also referred to the situation in Afghanistan, and he said that, the return of peace, he said a peace process which is owned by Afghanistan, Afghan-owned, Afghan-led peace process, which is consistent stand of India. But given the historical background, the Uzbeks, the Tajiks, they have been traditionally India's friends, since the USSR days, since the Cold War days, and they've played a role in Afghanistan, the situation then. The Prime Minister completely, what was the message that the Prime Minister was trying to send out?
Okay, so Amit, it looks like, as we know, that Afghanistan is kind of a gathering or a kind of group where most of its neighboring countries, most of the Central Asian countries, they have their stronghold, their ethnic population is there, and their warlords are also there, and they make significant contribution in terms of policy decision in Afghanistan. If there will be a stable Afghanistan, then it has to take all the ethnic groups together, and then only Afghanistan can be a peaceful and stable for future. Uzbekistan is also one of the key partners in development of Afghanistan. It wants peace to happen in Afghanistan, and as much as India wants Afghanistan to stabilize. So whenever India talks to neighboring countries of Afghanistan, like most of the Central Asian countries, it also tries to gauge the kind of sentiments that these countries have, and almost and India can always collaborate with these countries so that through upfrontly or through back channels also it can support and help Afghanistan. We have known that since last 3-4 decades, ever since this country and this whole region has been war ravaged, India has avoided any sort of power intervention or military intervention. It has rather focused on humanitarian intervention, public good and development work. And this has ensured India's goodwill in not only
Okay.
Afghanistan but other Central Asian countries.
True.
Also.
All right, Abhishek, we'll have to leave it there. Many thanks for joining us for the moment and giving us a perspective on the virtual summit that happened between Prime Minister Modi and President of Uzbekistan, Mirziyoyev, this morning. And let's now move on to our developing story of the hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appealed to the citizens of the country to listen to Union Ministers Narendra Tomar and Piyush Goyal, who explained the new farm laws last evening. They appealed to protesting farmers to end their stir and find an amicable solution through talks. Tomar had said that the government is open to discussing all aspects of the proposal on the new farm reforms with farmers. He also said that the farmers have been concerned over the APMC Act, that the new farm laws will lead to the end of MSP arrangement. However, he added that these doubts have no basis and reiterated that APMC and MSP are here to stay. Agriculture Minister said that 86% of the farmers in the country fall in the category of small and marginal farmers who stand to greatly benefit from the new laws. Meanwhile, the farmer groups are adamant with protests entering the 16th day. They have not reverted with their reaction for talks on the proposal. In fact, they had rejected the proposal, saying that they want nothing less than repealing the farm laws.
मुझे लगता है रास्ता निकलेगा, मैं आशावान हूं और मैं आपके माध्यम से किसान यूनियंस के लोगों को कहना चाहता हूं, गतिरोध उन्हें तोड़ना चाहिए। सरकार ने आगे बढ़कर प्रस्ताव दिया है, सरकार ने उनकी जो मांगे हैं उनको समाधान करने के लिए प्रस्ताव उनके पास भेजा है और कोई भी कानून में जो प्रावधान पर आपत्ति होती है तो प्रावधान पर ही चर्चा होती है और जो आपत्ति उनके ध्यान में आई उन आपत्तियों को निराकरण करने की हमने कोशिश प्रस्ताव में की है और इसलिए उन्हें आंदोलन समाप्त करके और वार्ता का रास्ता अपनाना चाहिए। अगर कोई बात और भी करने की जरूरत है तो सरकार बात करेगी।
And moving on to a national prime segment now. Union Minister Prakash Javadekar today addressed a press conference on the eve of 5 years of completion of the historic Paris Agreement on climate change. The minister said that India's aim to reduce carbon emission remains intact. Javadekar stressed that as a responsible participant in world affairs, India has chosen to take part in combating climate change, already reducing the emission by over 20%.
पेरिस एग्रीमेंट में 5 साल पहले 12 तारीख को हमने जो मंजूर किया था वो क्या था? वो ये था कि हमारी एमिशन इंटेंसिटी ऑफ जीडीपी will be reduced by 33 to 35%. This was a huge commitment. And I'm happy to say that we have already achieved 21%. So remaining 12-13% we'll achieve in next 10 years.
Javadekar also said that India is one of the few countries which are Paris Agreement compliant, with only being a country that has met specified commitments.
We are the few countries who are last column जो है, which is Paris Agreement compliant. यानी our actions lead to maximum temperature rise of 2 degrees to be achieved by 2100. India is the only G20 country to meet its commitment.
And the Environment Minister stressed that India has taken several significant steps to contribute towards mitigating the impact of climate change, including the launching of the International Solar Alliance.
प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व ने एक तो इंडियन सोलर अलायंस तैयार किया, 60 से ज्यादा देश उसमें शामिल हुए, और एक लीड आईटी है। लीड आईटी का मतलब है कि इंडस्ट्री एंड ट्रेड का हम लीडरशिप कर रहे हैं, स्वीडन और भारत, और भारत के और बाकी दुनिया के इंडस्ट्रीज को बुला के भाई वो कैसे 2 डिग्री कंप्लाइंट होंगे, उसकी चर्चा हम करते हैं कि उनका प्लान क्या है। मिशन इनोवेशन ये भी प्रधानमंत्री ने न्यूयॉर्क में लॉन्च किया था और आज उसके 24 देश है। फिर CDRI, कोएलिशन ऑफ डिजास्टर रेजिस्टेंट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, ये बहुत प्रधानमंत्री जी की ये चारों पहल दुनिया ने उसका स्वागत भी किया, सहभागी भी हुए।
He also listed some of the major steps taken within India for reducing emission, including the National Action Plan to mitigate climate change.
नेशनल क्लीन एयर प्रोग्राम है। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने 15 अगस्त के दिन में लाल किले से ये बताया था कि 100 शहरों में आने वाले 4-5 साल में हवा के रुख में बदलाव लाएंगे, हवा के स्थिति में बदलाव लाएंगे, अच्छी करेंगे, सुधार होगा। स्वच्छ भारत मिशन तो आप सब दुनिया में नवाजा जा रहा है, जिसमें स्वच्छता का भी मूल मंत्र लोगों ने लिया है, जन आंदोलन बना है और 12 करोड़ टॉयलेट्स भी बने हैं। भारत स्टेज 6 में हमने प्रवेश किया है, तो उसका भी परिणाम है। इलेक्ट्रिक मोबिलिटी, हमारे आज लगभग 3 लाख वाहन इलेक्ट्रिकल हो गए हैं और ये निरंतर बढ़ते जाएंगे, ये हमें विश्वास है। उज्ज्वला योजना में 8 करोड़ से ज़्यादा गैस दिए हैं। ग्रीन हाईवेज मिशन में हजारों किलोमीटर के जो हाईवेज बन रहे हैं वो ग्रीन बनेंगे, ऐसी उस विभाग की योजना है और उसका मॉनिटरिंग भी हो रहा है। फिर नेशनल एडेप्टेशन फंड फॉर क्लाइमेट चेंज है। फिर नेशनल कूलिंग एक्शन प्लान है। हमने सबसे अच्छी तरीके से मॉन्ट्रियल प्रोटोकॉल को पालन किया है। नमामि गंगे प्रोजेक्ट है, वो भी गंगा की सफाई करनी है और उसमें आने वाली सारी गंदगी रोकने का काम बड़े पैमाने पर हो रहा है।
And for more on that story, I'm joined by my colleague Taposh Bhattacharya for more on that. Taposh, as 5 years come to an end tomorrow after COP21, the world hasn't made much progress. The minister was saying that India is the only G20 country which has sort of gone and lived up to its commitment of a 2% climate reduction, 2-degree reduction in by the Paris Agreement. You've done about 21% reduction in your emissions since then. What is explain to us the importance of the situation, the times that we live in, of what the minister was saying?
Amritpal, you need to understand that even if with the lockdown and everything coming into effect, and people were talking about the fact that the sky was looking clearer and the weather was looking beautiful, even then 2020 is considered as the hottest year in the century. So you can imagine the kind of pollution level that has reached. Now when you talk about the Paris Agreement, the Paris Climate Agreement talk about reducing the temperature, the overall global temperature by almost 2 degrees Celsius. Now for that to happen, most of the industrial countries, industrial nations have to put forward their best foot, and that's where India's role is more commendable. Remember, if you take a close look at the pollution level, 4 main countries, European Union, China, US and India contributes to 60% of the pollution in the world. Now, if you take a look at India, India is the only G20 country, in fact, who is compliant, Paris climate compliant. And if you take a look at the United States, it has the worst record in following the Paris climate agreement. It comes under the critically insufficient category. Then comes China, and then which is under highly insufficient category, and then comes European Union, which comes under insufficient category. So only India has managed to reduce its in fact managed to actually achieve its Paris climate agreement protocols stated the whole thing that they have thought. So in a way they have actually walked the talk rather than only stated their mission. So in many ways India is a beacon of light for other countries to showcase that yes, here is a country, it's a developing country, it's not a developed country, yet it is making all out effort to mitigate the impact of climate change. And remember, climate change is not just going to not just impact developed countries, it's going to impact each and every flora and fauna, each and every individual in that whole environment in the coming years. So it is imperative that everyone, be it the developing countries, be it the developed countries, come together and solve this issue.
All right, Taposh, many thanks for joining us and giving us that update. And it's time for a short break on Midday Prime. We'll be back in a moment. Keep watching DD News.
समझ गए साहब? गुड, वेरी गुड। एक बार फिर करेंगे। भूकंप आते ही खुली जगह में जाओ, ना जा पाए तो पहले झुको,
सर को ढको, किसी चीज को मजबूती से पकड़ो या किसी कोने में सर ढककर खड़े हो जाओ। आप भी भूकंप से बचना सीखिए। तैयारी में है समझदारी। आपके हित में तत्पर एनडीए में।
Welcome back. You're watching Midday Prime. Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat delivered a keynote at the Global Dialogue Security Summit through the virtual platform. General Rawat said that the approach to security needs to be shifted from unilateral to multilateral mode, which mandates increasing training engagements.
In the military field, technology must become a means of deterrence and not a source of destruction. Therefore, technology must be applied to benefit mankind and not to destroy existing systems. Our approach to security, therefore, needs to shift from a unilateral mode to one of multilateral mode, which mandates increasing training engagements with partner nations so as to fructify joint response in the future.
India's first indigenous mRNA vaccine candidate has received approval from the Indian drug regulators to initiate phase 1 and 2 human clinical trials. The novel mRNA vaccine candidates HGCO19 has been developed by Genova, Pune and supported with seed grant under the CEPI mission of Department of Biotechnology. The mRNA vaccines do not use the conventional model to produce immune response. Instead, the mRNA vaccine carries the molecular instructions to make the protein in the body through a synthetic RNA of the virus. The host body uses this to produce the viral protein that's recognized and thereby making the body mount an immune response against the disease. The mRNA-based vaccines are scientifically the ideal choice to address a pandemic because of their rapid developmental timeline. The mRNA vaccine is considered safe as it's non-infectious, non-integrating in nature and degraded by standard cellular mechanisms. And let's now take a look at the update on COVID-19 from across the country. Well, 37,528 recoveries were recorded yesterday, taking the cumulative total of recovered patients to 92,90,834. With this, the recovery rate currently stands at 94.84%. India's three-pronged strategy of test, trace and treat is proving to be a success. The fertility rate has dropped to 1.45%, with 1,42,186 deaths recorded so far. The number of active COVID-19 cases in India stands at 3,63,749, of which 3.71% of the total cases are reported so far. Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan has said that 260 vaccine candidates in different stages of development globally, out of which 8 are scheduled to be manufactured in India, including 3 indigenous ones. He added that with stringent oversight, it is being ensured that there is no compromise on scientific and regulatory norms, stretching from safety of trials to efficacy of the vaccines.
While we are focused on developing a vaccine, we are simultaneously working towards leveraging our efficient and vast vaccine distribution network. We have analyzed our present requirement and are working towards augmenting our capacities, healthcare infrastructure and workforce. Leveraging the existing digital interventions in our immunization programs, India is working at breathtaking speed for building an advanced digital platform called CoWIN, which inter alia will allow citizens to self-register for vaccination, monitor their status and be provided with a QR code-based electronic vaccination certificate.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the International Bharati Festival 2020 via video conferencing this evening. He will also present the Bharati Award on the occasion. The event is being conducted as part of the 138th birth anniversary celebrations of Tamil poet and writer Mahakavi Subramania Bharati. The festival is usually conducted at his memorial in Chennai every year, but is being organized in the virtual mode this year due to the pandemic. It will see the participation of several national and international poets and artists. Programs for the celebrations include poetry sessions and renditions of Bharati's songs and speeches. The palanquin procession Jati Paluku of Bharati's idol is being taken out from Parthasarthi temple in Triplicane to his memorial this morning to mark the start of the event. As cold wave is sweeping across parts of India, several states are witnessing low visibility due to fog. Air quality in the national capital Delhi remains in the very poor category. Uttar Pradesh's Kanpur was also seen shrouded by a thick blanket of fog, which is expected to continue till the 14th of December. Meanwhile, fog also covered Patna, reducing visibility in the region. The minimum temperature in the state is expected to remain at 15 degrees Celsius. And let's now take a look at what's making news across the globe. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Thursday that there was a strong possibility that Britain and the EU would fail to safeguard free trade past the end of the year, a prospect that has weighed on the pound as markets see increasing risk of economic rupture. The European Union and Britain are at loggerheads over fishing rights, economic fair play and dispute settlement, despite months of talks on a new trade deal to keep an estimated $1 trillion of commerce free of tariffs or quotas from 2021.
We need to be very, very clear. There's now a strong possibility that we will have a solution that's much more like an Australian relationship with the EU than a Canadian relationship with the EU. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. There are plenty of ways, as I've said, that we can turn that to the advantage of both sides in the conversation. There are plenty of opportunities for the UK. But yes, now is the time for the public and for businesses to get ready for January the 1st. Because, believe me, there's going to be change either way There'll be change whether it's a Canada-style deal or an Australia-style deal. But we certainly now need to make proper preparations for that Australian solution.
And earlier we spoke to our correspondent Ollie Barrett on the future of Brexit. This is what he had to say.
Well, the two sides say that they remain quite far apart on a couple of significant issues. One is fishing rights, how much access European boats and fishermen will have to British fishing quotas and waters after January the 1st. The other is this idea of level playing field, how much Britain will follow these standards when it comes to things like workers' rights, state aid, competition for business after January the 1st, and what the EU can do about it if Britain starts to diverge. The UK insists that it needs to become what it calls a sovereign nation. The European Union says that Britain, if it wants access to the European single market, needs to sign up to those tough standards and give it a decent deal when it comes to fishing as well. Both sides have set themselves a deadline of Sunday now, but many deadlines have come and gone in the past. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson says there is now a strong possibility that there will be no deal between Britain and the EU, and has asked his cabinet to start preparing for no deal after December the 31st. But his Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden has this Friday been saying there is a strong possibility that there will be a deal. So everything still hangs in the balance.
Well, that was Ollie Barrett, correspondent in London. And moving on, no big parties for New Year in France, and the country will not reopen museums, cinemas and theatres next week as planned because of COVID-19 infection rates, which are not falling as fast as the government had hoped, Prime Minister Jean Castex said on Thursday. The French government had announced that a lockdown imposed at the end of October to get grips with the second coronavirus wave would be partially lifted by December 15th, including the reopening of cultural venues, but that was contingent on the number of new cases of infection falling to around 5,000 a day. France will miss that target, though transmission rates are several times lower than that they were at the peak of the second wave. France is currently recording an average of 11,368 new cases each day, according to the Reuters data. Theatres, cinemas and museums are now scheduled to reopen at the beginning of January. France will stick to its previously announced plan to end a stay-at-home order on the 15th of December and replace it with a nightly curfew. But in a departure from the plan, the curfew will run from 8 p.m. each night, an hour earlier than planned, and will not be waived for the New Year's Eve. And it's time for us to look at our sports segment, look at stories from the world of sports. And my colleague Suchitra joins us for more on that. Suchitra, tell us what's making news in the world of sports.
Thank you, Amrit. Let's start with some good news from the world of Formula One. Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton is declared fit to race in Abu Dhabi after recovering from COVID-19. The FIA, Formula One and Mercedes confirmed that Hamilton had passed a number of negative COVID-19 tests after completing a 10-day quarantine period in Bahrain. He has already arrived in Abu Dhabi, where he tested negative a further time. The 7-time world champion was forced to miss the Sakhir Grand Prix after returning a positive COVID-19 test prior to the race weekend. Riyanshu Negi has signed with the DME Sports Academy, Florida, becoming the 4th male student athlete from NBA Academy India to commit to a high school or college basketball program in the US. The 18-year-old from Roorkee has been part of multiple basketball development camps organized by the NBA. On to football now. Arsenal finished their Europa League Group B campaign with a 100% record as they overcame Dundalk in muddy conditions at the Aviva Stadium. The Gunners won the match 4-2. Eddie Nketiah gave the Gunners the lead in 12th minute. Mohamed El Neni, Joe Willock and Folrin Belgan were the others to score for the Gunners. Tottenham Hotspur secured first place in Europa League Group J with a 2-0 home win over Royal Antwerp thanks to second-half goals from Carlos Vinicius and Giovanni Lo Celso on Thursday. The result means Spurs will be seeded in the last 32 draw, thereby avoiding some of the favourites in Monday's draw. Leicester finished top of their Europa League group after defeating AEK Athens 2-0. Cengiz Under opened his account for Leicester in spectacular style to give the Foxes a 12-minute lead. The winger is on a year's loan from Roma. Harvey Barnes doubled the lead 2 minutes later. This win means Brendan Rodgers' team will be seeded in Monday's last 32 draw. So those were some top sports stories. Back to you, Amrit.
Well, thank you, Suchitra, for that. And now it's time to move on to our next segment, which we call Life Prime, where we bring you stories from the world of art, culture, cinema, fashion, science and innovation. Stories that bring smiles, stories that are changing lives. In order to raise awareness on the need to protect mountains and its biodiversity, the International Mountain Day is being observed today. It's a UN-designated day to celebrate rich biodiversity as well as address threats mountains face. The theme for the International Mountain Day 2020 is Mountain Biodiversity. This theme highlights the need to address the threats mountain biodiversity faces. In a visual delight for visitors, an ice cave which forms naturally on a high-altitude glacier in Swiss Alps became accessible on Thursday as the huge blue vaults of the Ice Cathedral in Les Diabrettitz in Switzerland. The cave has a rounded ceiling made of thick ice about 5 meters high and is about 20 meters long. The site can be reached on foot in 15 minutes from the chairlift at Glacier 3000 above the resort of Les Diabrettitz. In London, a zoo has been decorated to add a touch of festive joy to their parks with handmade Christmas wreaths. A pair of cheeky llamas had other ideas. Llamas Andy and Dainty could quickly made a meal out of the festive decor pinned to their enclosures. The edible wreaths made from the plants and trees found within the zoo were tossed into the air. Well, that's it then in Midday Prime. But before we leave, we tell you that though the vaccine is being developed, it'll take some time to produce it, and after that also you might still have to wear the mask. So we're running this campaign, Mask Up India. You also mask yourself, wear a mask when you go out, and stay safe. Namaskar.